Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. My name is Charles Odongtho, and with me in the studio, the old man of the clan, Andrew Mwenda, Managing Director of the Independent newspaper, News Magazine. Andrew, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Andrew, the whole of this week we have been looking at the fundamental change. And today we are going to be looking at the way forward. One of the issues that most critics of President Museveni have a problem with is that he has failed to relinquish power, successfully or peacefully. And that has been one of the problems that Uganda has had, even before he came to power. What's your view of that, to start with, Andrew?
To be honest, I do not know. You know, I used to be a term limits fundamentalist. I have lost my appetite in that debate because I have just been trying to do with some friends of mine in the United States universities a study of governments in Africa. Countries that have seen continuous changes of government, like Nigeria. You do not have any president of Nigeria who has been in power for more than 8 years. So average age has been 5 years. If you look at the countries like Kenya, which have had the long-term stability, if you look at countries that have been ruled by military upstarts, by revolutionary leaders, you don't see fundamental changes in the economies of Africa that this country, therefore, because it had regular change of government, it performed better. So I am less inclined these days to put a high premium on how long a person has stayed in power, and have a greater premium. I put a greater premium on what they have done when they have been in office. Isn't
that because you now think that President Museveni is better, or is it because of the fundamental thinking that you have as a journalist?
I am much more forgiving of him because I realize that he's not very different from most of his contemporaries. And if I compare him with the many African leaders, he may come across as better than many.
Quickly, let me recall for you what President Museveni said in 1989 when there was a question of what exactly the fundamental change meant. He said, whichever way democracy is defined, it must incorporate the rule of law, social justice, and observance of basic human rights. That's what President Museveni said. And then he added, we want to build a win-win democracy where all political groups can participate and where all people will get the feeling that the government belongs to them. Andrew, if you look back then, do you think he has lived by that?
I think that's the problem Museveni has. He has tended to overpromise and underdeliver. Well, you know, if you are doing things, you never overpromise people too many things. So you see, he was promising heaven on earth there. He was saying that all people would be satisfied. Do you think Besigye is satisfied?
No, of course not.
Do you think Olarotu is satisfied? No one is satisfied except those who support him. Anyway.
In line of that, how do you think democracy should be defined? Because my thinking, I get a sense that democracy is supposed to be a uniformly understood word. That what Lukwago understands to be democracy should be what Jennifer Musisi understands, should be what my friend Frank Tumwebaze understands, not differently.
No, that cannot happen. By the way, I should tell you, even in America, which says it's a beacon of democracy, there are many people, even I, Andrew Mwenda, I don't think America is a democracy. I think it is an oligarchy of corporations. Even if you told me about Sweden, I do not think that democracy, idealistically defined, exists anywhere in any part of the world. It doesn't exist. So there are varying degrees of freedom and unfreedoms that you may find in societies. And therefore, what President Museveni was, you know, when Museveni came to power, he had an infantile imagination.
Infantile imagination?
Infantile imagination. He was very naive.
Why do you say that? That's a very strong word to say about a president who has been successful for 28 years.
He was very naive and idealistic to the point of being childish. Unless, of course, Museveni was like Besigye today, a politician speaking and thinking that, you see, there are limits to human possibility. Let me tell you, one of my influences is by Karl Popper. Karl Popper said that human society is inherently imperfect, and a perfect society is impossible to achieve. So we must content ourselves with an imperfect society, but which is capable of infinite improvement. So we can continually improve our society, but we can never make it perfect.
In line of that, do you think that the promises that President Museveni was making that time, he believed in them, and that fundamentally certain things changed along the way, you know, that he decided to change as well?
Let me frame it this way.
Yeah.
I think that Museveni is a developmentalist and is committed to the development of Uganda. But you see, for Museveni to develop Uganda, as he believes in his mind, he must be in power first, because Museveni cannot achieve his vision when he has been overthrown and is in jail or exile, right? So he must be in power first. But to be in power, there are certain things he needs to do. Now, that is the treacherous terrain, because for you to manage power, you may need to buy off the kabaka, you may need to bribe church leaders, you may need to compromise with the messenger, you may need to do many things. Now, the manipulations and machinations of trying to retain power may divert you from the objective of the development towards managing power, and therefore what you do is they may not stop you from moving towards your vision, but they may slow down your pace, and it depends, possibly by 99%, by 90%, by 50%. And depending on the structure of the society, your pace will be determined by how you manage to retain power.
And so those conditions that pertain at the moment. Now, very quickly, you talked about maybe bribing religious leaders or maybe, you know, issues of constitution earlier. Now, there is a paper
perhaps I should use a diverse of words. Yeah. You may need, one, to bribe. You may need to cajole. You may need to convince. You may need to intimidate. You may need to kill. You may need to blackmail. Leaders employ a variety of instruments to hold and retain power. You may need even to lie. Do you see? So in trying to do all those things to ensure that you are able to keep the security services on your side, to keep the political process on your side, there are many compromises and concessions you end up giving that may divert both your attention and your energy away from the objectives you have set out towards just maintaining power. What
is your view of the future of this country? President Museveni not leaving power 28 years after, and there doesn't seem to be any sign that he may leave. Maybe he will. What do you see as
again, I will frame for you the answer differently. You see, if you ask me to judge Museveni and a possible transition in the future, I look at Museveni as a person who went to the bush and through an armed struggle captured power. And who are the other regimes that in that category? You have Rwanda, Mozambique, Angola, Zimbabwe, and Eritrea in Africa, plus Algeria and Guinea-Bissau. You have Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, China.
And you can add people like
the Sandinistas,
you know, Gaddafi, the late Gaddafi,
Gaddafi came
Libya.
Through a military coup. He came through a military coup. But if you look at these armed struggle governments, post-armed struggle governments, one, the founding leader tends to die in office, so I would expect Museveni is likely to die in office. And whenever he dies, you'd expect there to be chaos. There is always a peaceful transition. You have seen it in when Samuel Machel died, when Agostinho Neto died in Angola. You have seen it when last year Meles Zenawi died, or when Castro retired, or when Kim Jong-il dies, or when Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam died, or when Chairman Mao died.
So are you predicting doom for Uganda? And
no, but I have said that if I look at other revolutionary movements, their characteristics are that the founding father tends to die in office. Two, there is always a peaceful transition. So if you ask me about Uganda, I will tell you I'm very positive, or I'm very optimistic.
Can't there be an exception for Uganda?
Yes. So there are always black swans. You know, a black swan is the impact of a rare and unexpected event. So that cannot be predicted from examination of armed struggles across historic time and geographic space, across Africa and Asia and Latin America, and across from the 1950s up to now. They have a particular characteristic, these armed struggle governments.
Andrew, if you were given an opportunity to write a memorial message, an epitaph for President Museveni, if he died before you, what would you write? I would be very generous to President Museveni. I would do, if I was writing his epitaph, I would focus on his achievements. Museveni has been, overall, I would say, a very successful president because he has given Uganda a long period of stability. He has stabilized the political dispensation. He has put the economy on the rails of growth. Of course, I am conscious of the fact that he has presided over an extremely corrupt and incompetent government. I think Uganda has not had a government that has been as corrupt and as incompetent as the Museveni administration. So, recognizing that he has been abysmal in the delivery of public goods and services, but he has been fairly competent in providing a stable political order over 3 decades and keeping, sustaining a growing economy. His record on democratization and institutionalization, you could give him a 60% or a B-. So, I would be much more generous to him, and I would give him a plus. Plus?
Yes.
Above 50?
Not above 50. I would give him even an A. I would give him an A. He has tried his best. I would give him an A.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Today I need to give you a handshake because you are part of the celebration. And I know that when they talk about the media, you are part of those that they talk about. Yes. And I thank you so much for coming to Newsnight. That was Newsnight. Good evening.